Back at it here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. And a lot to cover, even though the Chiefs may not cover much ground when it comes to what they're going to put on the field this week. What are the pros and cons of being off for 24 days? What players are we most interested in seeing? Who needs to play in this game? What kind of expectations do we have for Carson Wentz? And we'll react to the Chiefs' 5 Pro Bowl players. Did they get it right on that? Who should the fans be rooting for in other games on Sunday? How close are the Broncos to catching the Kansas City Chiefs? And, of course, we always wrap it up with our predictions. It's coming up right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
One that doesn't matter for the Kansas City Chiefs, although it is kind of a unique situation, Jeff. 24 days off for some of these guys. Patrick Mahomes not going to play for more than 3 weeks. This has been talked about. We've been discussing it for a little while, but now it's a reality. What does this mean for the Chiefs, and how much might this hamper or help their efforts in winning 3 straight championships?
Well, look, I think we've all been on the record saying that they need the rest. You've got older players like Travis Kelce and Hopkins and Joe Tooney and Chris Jones, guys who are critical to your success, so they're going to have opportunities to sit down and get their bodies right. So I think that's the big win. I don't put a whole lot of stock in the rust argument. To me, it's like if you're a really good team, this is a really good team, they're well coached, they have a great quarterback, they've got 3 championships with this core group. I don't see where you're going to suffer all that much from it. I know that younger teams, maybe that could be a factor, or lesser coach teams, but I think that this team will be ready to play. And I think Andy Reid's history with time off and having time to reset and, really evaluate and assess opponents is an advantage for the Chiefs. So I don't see where it's going to be a problem for them.
How about you, Sam? You think this is a real dilemma for them, or is it, no, we want to be healthy and you don't worry about it and you move forward?
Well, I know this is kind of a cop-out, but I do think it's a little bit of both. Just because it's an unprecedented length of time with 24 to 25 days. I can only find 2 times in Andy Reid's history where he had rested guys for at least 20 days because, obviously the starter's last game was on a Wednesday rather than a Sunday. And so that gives an extra 5 days off. And look, in both of those instances, he won the game. And to Jeff's point, Andy Reid is, I think, the best in the NFL with time off. And his bye week record speaks to that. The fact that he's only lost 2 season openers with the Chiefs speaks to that. Like, when he's got all the time in the world to prepare, there's nobody better. And I think I mentioned this stat on the last time we podcasted, but it's even better when he's the only guy that gets that extra time, which is what's going to be before the Chiefs in the divisional round. Whoever they play will be playing the previous week. He will not be. In those situations, whether it's the regular season or playoffs, he's 29-3, like a 91% win percentage, which, find me a situation in the NFL where you can find 91% of the time you win a game. So you have to do it this way because of, what Jeff said about, we know Travis Kelce really benefited a year ago from the playoffs. We know Chris Jones has been dealing with an injury. Patrick Mahomes is actually still on the injury report for his ankle injury. Him getting time off is not going to be a bad thing. But like I said, it is an unprecedented amount of time. And there's a reason that Steve Spagnuolo opened the week by putting a message on the board to his team that says, do not lose your edge. Like, they know this, that they've got to coach during these specific weeks for guys not to lose their edge, because I think this edge that has driven them all year for this three-peat has been a very real thing, and you've got to caution against losing that.
Yeah, it is. Something I think if you can get guys, I think it's a no-brainer. Like, if you can get your frontline guys out on the field, which means not letting them get hurt, the ones that aren't, you do it. We saw the Detroit Lions play guys in a game that meant nothing. I still don't get that. I understand the mindset of we want to keep the rhythm of things. But I do think it's not nothing, right? Like, we've seen teams, what's one of the common themes we seemingly talk about each of the last 2 or 3 years is that nobody plays in preseason games and look how rusty everyone is. The early football games are trash. There is an element of, like, you can't just not play and then play, right? Is there a difference with the fact that you've had all these games, Jeff, and you keep with the practice schedule and the mindset? Is it as much mental and they're in that mental spot right now, or is it just the physical aspect of hitting and popping, which frankly no one's really doing this time of year?
Yeah, it's not the physical part of it. The NFL, we always say, is 90% mental. And so for a Dan Campbell team, I think staying true to your personality is what's important. So for Dan Campbell, that's their personality. We're going to go fight you. We get paid to play games. We're going to go play games. And that's what we're going to do. I remember Tom Coughlin back when the Patriots were going undefeated and they were like, no reason to play, but we're going to go play because we think we can play with this team. We're going to play. And that helped them. I think it certainly helped them feel like we can play with this team. When they saw them again, they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl that year. I think the Chiefs' success this year, I know this flies in the face of a lot of people who listen to this program, it hasn't really been about the physical part. It's been about the mental part. And so I think that having the opportunity to really strategize and evaluate, come up with good game plans, really kind of hide your weaknesses, that's more important than being out there every day. Because they're not going to – people hate hearing this. This ain't, the 1977 Steelers, 78 Steelers going out there whooping everybody because they have a huge talent gap. Like, every team they're going to play is going to be really good. It's going to be really well coached. And if they win a championship, it's going to be because they beat those teams with their game plans.
And look, the flip side of this is, let's say you were playing your starters this weekend. More of your attention, from your coach's attention, would be focused on this week. And the reason that Andy Reid is really good with these gaps, I think, is not just because, look, the Chiefs don't know who they're going to play. And so they will assign assistant coaches to different teams to sort of get advanced scouts on them, but they can't put their full weight into, let's say, game planning for the Texans or something of that sort, because you don't know that you're going to play the Texans. So what Andy Reid really does well during the regular season bye week and during time off like this in the playoffs, when it's the unknown of the opponent, is he scouts himself really well. And their internal scouts of how can we be better? I think there's never been a better time for it, because you've only had 2 weeks of Hollywood Brown on the field. You've only had 2 weeks to evaluate, why is this working? What else might work because this is working, and how can you layer onto it and get even better? So I think, this is always a good thing for Andy Reid, but I think exponentially so, because it's this oddity of only having 2 weeks with your full offense this regular season.
Yeah, I think there is a risk reward, but he's been down this road and had success. It's just that it's the length, how long it's going to be with all the other dynamics that are added into it. Let's talk.
Sorry, Soren, I just want to add one thing. I don't think that this result should not dictate whether or not they did it right with rest. I don't, it's a situation where the correlation does not equal the causation. If they lose this game, it's not just because they rested the guys. If they win the game, it's not just because the rest of the guys. I do think that determination is going to be made. And I don't think that necessarily is the exact link for the result of this particular game.
But I don't think you can say it doesn't matter. right?
No, it matters for sure. Yeah.
What doesn't matter? The rest or the time
well,
off?
I agree with Sam that if they win this game, it won't be because they rested for 24 days. If they lose it, it won't be because they rested for 24 days.
Yeah.
But it will be a factor in it, right? It won't be the sole reason. It's not they rested for 24 days, therefore they win.
It's exactly how I
have
feel.
A game plan. Yeah. They still have to execute. They still have to do all the things it takes to win. I agree with that. But I also I do think it is an element of getting it right. I mean, there is a point. You would not want to sit for 6 months. Do we agree with that? And then play a game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there's a line
factor.
there.
Yeah, there's a factor. Yeah.
There's a line there. It's just where is that line? I think that's the question. Who are you interested in seeing in this game? Some guys we haven't seen. Who do you want to see out on the field, Jeff, in this go round?
Well, if he was healthy, I'd love to see DJ Humphries play. I don't know if that's going to happen. I look at a guy like Steven Nelson, who they signed to the practice squad, who has played in the league a long time. It was signed for depth, but I'd love to see what he has left because you don't want to just throw him into a playoff game and find out that way. Felix Uzama, he made a nice play in that Steelers game, so he'll have opportunities to do more stuff. Maybe he can expand upon that. And then Hollywood Brown, just so I can hear Sam talk more about separation and advanced analytics and how he's the next Jerry Rice. So he'd be my fourth guy.
Am I noting some sarcasm there?
Yeah, it's a little bit. So Brown can play so Justin Watson can have 200 yards receiving. How about that?
Okay, so officially the list you're looking for is?
Yeah, it's Humphries, Steven Nelson, FAU, and Hollywood.
Okay. How about you, Sam? Who are you looking at in this one?
Yeah, I'm glad that Jeff's got Hollywood because I don't put inconsequential players on my list. I've got DJ Humphries, first because I think he's the only guy that I think could have a consequential impact on the Chiefs playoffs if he plays well. I'm still interested in seeing Carson Wentz play. I think he's playing for a job. I still think he's one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Justin Ross, I think, is somebody that should be elevating from the practice squad because I would sit Xavier Worthy. I know I'm in the minority on this. I don't need to see more from Hollywood Brown. And I also don't think that I'd want to put a ton of tape on Hollywood Brown out there and just how he works in your offense. And so that leaves the only receivers you have with Justin Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, guys I don't think you're crazy about playing, and Nico Remigio, in which case I think you need to elevate a wide receiver. And I'd elevate Justin Ross. So I've got him on the list. And one other guy that I don't know that they're going to play is Kingsley Suamataia. And I don't mean at left tackle. I think the Chiefs internally are weighing whether or not he is going to play left tackle in the future. And that another option for him is in the interior, is to play left guard or right guard. And that's why I'm interested to see, are they going to give away their hand that they view him potentially as a guard and not a tackle down the line? And therefore, are they going to insert him into a game at guard?
One thing I'll add in here before I get to my list is Watson is going to be practicing. They're going to put him on the practice field. So they're opening the 21-day window. Now, sometimes that happens when you get to this point. You're like, okay, let's give it a try. Let's see if we can get there. And you start it and you go, he's not there. And you shut it down. So this does not mean that Watson playing in the playoffs is imminent, but it should be noted they are opening the 21-day window, and so he will be.
Jalen Watson.
Yeah, Jalen Watson.
And Andy Reid said that was possible that he would play, to your point, Soren, because this is not a guarantee. It was possible, but it could be considered a stretch that they get him back. And it's more likely, as I think everyone here knows, they did open the same thing with McCole Hardman on Wednesday, and I do anticipate they will get him back if they make probably just win a game. I
think Hardman has got a chance, but I think Watson might be as much to make the opposition game plan for Watson might be back. I think we may hear a lot each week about Watson. He's close. We'll just see his day to day, and then inactive.
Getting better.
I think, and then we see the inactive designation for him on each week of the playoffs. So. But I don't know. I have no idea. They are. It is of note that he will be back at practice. I would be really surprised if he plays in the first game. I think this is something for on down the road in the postseason. I bring it up. For me, Kingsley Suamataia was tops on my list for one of the reasons you said, Sam. I want to see where they play him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they're going to put him at left tackle and risk Carson Wentz because Carson Wentz, they want to play well, but they can't get him destroyed, right? Like, I think they need Carson Wentz. So do they play him and where do they play him? And I'll sidebar Ethan Driscoll. Do they get him out there? I mean, they have not. We saw how bad it was with Kingsley Suamataia. We saw at times it was bad with Kingsley or with Wanya Morris, and yet they didn't go to Ethan Driscoll. So, okay, why not? What is there? What are you so worried about with those guys? I do think that is. I want to see, like, is he because if they don't play him, that's of note. Can we agree on that? That it's like, okay, what have you been carrying this guy all this time this year for? I think that becomes of note. So I've got him. Hunter Norzad, I would like to see what they end up doing with him because I think he's the guy that they're projecting to be one of the starters for next year. So I've got my eye on whether or not he plays, and if he does, how well he plays. How about Josh Uche? I mean, could he
still
be
here?
Theoretically, could he be something that could be a piece on? I mean, I think they've moved on from him. I think they went, okay, we looked at it, it didn't work. But I think we'll know that even more if we see him play and he doesn't play well. So I'd like to see what he does. And then I think Carson Steele is going to get the ball. Can he hold on to it? I think that one's known. I have
Pro Bowl caliber player you're talking about there.
Well, alternate. Alternate, Pro Bowl alternate caliber. Yeah. There's one more I think we should add to all of our lists, which is Nico Remigio. And the reason is because if Mecole Hardman comes back, Nico Remigio has been a better returner than Mecole Hardman has, but Mecole Hardman factors into the offense. And so this is Nico Remigio's opportunity to say that he can be a factor in the offense and, press the issue, make it a difficult decision for the Chiefs when Mecole Hardman is ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. Always a good point. If you need help with your insurance, our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
Unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit any one of our 12 Key Cannabis locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products and expert recommendations from Missouri's friendliest bud tenders. Quick service, convenient online ordering, drive-through pickup, and a fantastic loyalty program. Plus, Key Cannabis offers discounts for veterans, med patients, cannabis industry professionals, seniors, first responders, and students. Visit us in KC North, South KC, and Belton. Open 7 days a week or shop online at keykannabis.com. Key Cannabis, open for premium cannabis experiences.
All right, let's put a little bit of a twist on the last question. Let's say who needs to play, right? Who is somebody that could use? I mean, I think DJ Humphries is the obvious one, right, Jeff? Like, that's a guy that if you're not all in on Joe Thuney at left tackle, then he's got to play in this game, doesn't he?
Yeah, no question. I mean, this is the guy you've been 100% in on as the answer. So I'd like to see what he can do. Now, again, I've always been skeptical of it, and I do think it might be a little bit of a stretch to put him into a game like this against a really good pass rushing team that is trying to make the playoffs. And so I don't know if that's the best place for him to play. But yeah, I think he needs to be on the field to see, because if he can't play, if he can't do something, now you can move Joe Thuney back to left guard, and you can have your offensive line really be intact and more of a threat to really propel the run game, which quietly is disappeared from this offense. And so they're going to need that to be a big part of this. So I'd love to see him play.
Well, they've done a better job of protecting the quarterback. That is the quiet little secret, is that they haven't been running the ball as well. I mean, Joe Thuney solidified the pass protection, but it hasn't exactly taken off for the running game. You agree, I assume, with DJ Humphries. Sam, anyone else that needs to play in this game?
Not any of the starters. I mean, the other sort of under the radar thing is that I think Carson Wentz needs snaps too. And I actually think he needs snaps with at least a group of the starting offensive line as well. And so therefore, if it's just a series, I don't think you mind playing Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, that group, because the reality is that the backup quarterback has had to play in 2 of the last 4 postseason runs. Chad Henne got time against the Jaguars and he got time against the Browns. Like, Patrick Mahomes will put his body on the line in the playoffs, and I don't think you want your first snaps being from Carson Wentz. And obviously Carson Wentz is going to play. I'm just saying I think he needs this time, and I think he needs it with, the guys who are going to be calling out the signals and that they hear his voice and vice versa during this game.
I totally agree. I think he needs to play. I think he needs to get snaps, but they need to protect him, which is what makes it kind of a curious situation here, because I think you'd like to keep Carson Wentz because I think they can win a playoff game with him, right? And so, this isn't a guy that, like, we're completely screwed if we have to go to him anyway. Like, I think right now you feel like we haven't seen him. Maybe he's rusted and eroded and mentally not what he used to be. But I think you can win a playoff game with him, so it's important to get him up and running. I agree on the Carson Wentz. I will, Jeff, though, disagree with Sam a little bit. I'll get your thoughts on it. We'll come back to the agent for Hollywood Brown, Sam McDowell, here in a moment. But I think Hollywood Brown does need to play. I think the question is his fragile injury history and the fact that he is coming off an injury and one that, I don't know, I broke my collarbone. I don't know when I was 100% because I didn't go run into people. I did mean I couldn't play football anymore. It was part of why I quit playing football, because they said, well, I don't know, you're not quite ready. And I'm like, well, I ain't playing in college. I ain't playing in the pros. So that's enough of that. So, it is something that, taking hits on. I don't know where he might be 100% and at no more risk than anybody else. I have no idea. So he's already kind of a risk, but really just a couple of games. Are we completely set that he's up to speed and ready to go? Are you at that point?
No. I think, I keep saying, I think he's a fine player. I think he's a good addition. I don't think he is the reason this offense is playing at a higher level.
Right. But I want to be clear. This is not a referendum on what Brown is on his ability. It's just whether or not he would benefit from playing.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get to. I think that he needs to, if he can be that, I'd love to see more of that. I don't think you're giving away your game plan if you're putting him into a game and targeting on certain situations now. And I think the matchups he would see against the Patrick Surtain or a Riley Moss would certainly open my eyes to what he could become. Maybe the Chiefs' eyes to what he can become. But I do think that the idea that, not showing the rest of the league what he can be is a little bit presumptuous. I think that the things that he does can be taken away. I want to see if he can do more of that.
Well, there's a shot in that.
So you want to see more of it, but like, what's the advantage of the Chiefs seeing more of Hollywood Brown? Do you think he's like out of shape, that he needs the conditioning? Do you think that he needs like to practice basically? Like, why do we think that Hollywood Brown needs more snaps?
Because I think you can put him into different formations. You can put him in with different packages. He becomes more versatile. I think right now, from what I've seen, now maybe I'm wrong, I think his role is fairly limited. Now, maybe that's because of the injury. Maybe that's because of the time off. I don't know. Or maybe it's just ability level. But I think that they have an idea of what he can be. And much the same, look at what happened with Xavier Worthy when he was forced to do more stuff. I mean, it was a transition, but he's a better player for it now. We saw more things become. I think I'd love to see the same thing happen for Hollywood Brown in this kind of game where I'm saying, he's more just a deep threat. He can do this stuff too.
I agree with that. I'm wondering if that's where the Chiefs are too, if the Chiefs already feel like they have those answers. I think the Chiefs with Xavier Worthy, I think that's a great point on him.
I don't think not to interrupt you, Sam, but I loved your question because that really put a different light on it. Because when you put it that way to Jeff, because I want to see more, because I'm not convinced of what he is. But I think that's a fantastic point. It does training camp, mini camp, OTAs, a couple practices, a couple of games, tell the Chiefs everything they need to know about where it is. And I think we'd all agree they know more about him than we do from having been around him. But do they know enough? I'm more likely to kind of agree. I was kind of the mindset. I wouldn't mind seeing him play a little bit because I want to see him keep knocking the rust off. I want to see what he can do. But I think you make a great point. If they know exactly what he is, then why would you play him? Because he is so fragile.
So remember, they thought they saw all they had to see with Kingsley Suamataia in the preseason, and we saw how that turned out. Sometimes they can be wrong about this.
I don't think they really actually thought that. I think they just thought he was their best option. And I mean, hey, that still may have not even been inaccurate after we saw Wanya Morris. I think you bring up a great point about Xavier Worthy, though. I do think, and this is relative to what I said earlier, the Chiefs didn't even know what they were going to get out of Xavier Worthy. And I think was part of his late season development. And we're in the dark on this question that I asked you too. We don't know whether or not the Chiefs think that Hollywood Brown can do everything. My guess is just based on what we saw in camp and the roles they have put him in the 2 games, even though it has been limited, I think they have a better idea of what Hollywood Brown can bring them already.
Okay. I think that's fair. What are the expectations for Carson Wentz? Like, Jeff, do you think that, he goes out there and looks what? Like, I mean, they're Matt Moore plus, aren't they? Right? Or no, is that not fair because Matt Moore played once? They're Chase Daniel plus. Chase Daniel played a competitive game against the Chargers in one of these throwaways. Last year, we saw Blaine Gabbert win in one of these games. What are the expectations for Wentz?
Would the Chargers play in their starters in that game? I can't even remember.
I think they were, but they didn't have a playoff game on that.
So they were kind of just going through the motion. I don't think he has to prove a whole lot. I mean, I think if you've brought him in here and you've looked at his resume, you know that he's played in big games. You know that he is somebody who's performed well at certain points of his career. I think it's a huge challenge, just as with DJ Humphries, to say Carson Wentz, go out there with Juju Smith-Schuster and Nico Remigio and Samaje Perine and backup offensive line and go beat one of the best defenses in the NFL. Like, I don't see how he can come out of that a winner. I expect him to be competent. I expect him to run the offense. I expect him to probably have some mistakes. To be honest with you, I think it's not even going to be a close game. I had an argument debate with some friends of mine earlier today about this. How can it be a 10-point spread? Well, like, one team is playing all its starters and trying to get a playoff spot. The other team is sitting most of its key players, and he doesn't care about the game. It's like it's a recipe for disaster, but I think he'll be okay.
Okay. What do you want to see from Carson Wentz?
Yeah, he plays the position a lot differently than Patrick Mahomes. I don't just mean in terms of talent. I mean stylistically. So the last couple of years that he started, like, Carson Wentz takes a lot of chances. Like, when I talk about Patrick Mahomes being a non-aggressive quarterback, in terms of the tight window throws, Carson Wentz ranks top 5 in that most years. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see. It's one of the reasons I want to see Justin Ross on the field, is because they had a connection in training camp purely because Justin Ross doesn't get separation, but he's got a big catch radius, and Carson Wentz says, I'll take a chance here. I'll throw a back shoulder throw to Justin Ross. I'll throw it up in the end zone on a fade play. And so I just think, to see the Chiefs operate in that sort of offensive manner of the quarterback just having to throw in tight spaces, it may not be enjoyable, but it's going to be different. And so I'm interested to see how that works out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we want to see him be sharp, right? For one, be able to execute the offense. You mentioned him taking chances. I don't want to see him be checked down Charlie, right? I want to know that he will take some plays down the field and will make some plays. I think that's your fear, is he too, too mistake prone, just trying not to ruin his time here in Kansas City. Because let's be honest, he takes the field, wanting to win, wanting to be successful, but really more so for a contract next year, right? Like, this is his big time to shine and show that with Andy Reid, look what I can do. Like, if you've got a good offensive guy, I can be the man. So if he comes out and is checking it down all over the place, that's a little bit scary for me, because I think his mindset should be to go out and show out, right?
Win a job. Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a showcase for him, really, is what it is. We're always brought to you by our friends at Whataburger. Whataburger is proud to sponsor the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Now at all your KC Whataburger locations, and for a limited time only, get your Whata Wings tossed in any of your favorite flavors, including the new Nashville Hot. Or get your hands on fire you can handle with the all-new, perfectly spicy Bacon Blaze Jalapeno Double. Get a kick this football season with these great new limited-time Whataburger favorites. Stop by any of the Kansas City Whataburger locations today. Whataburger's open 24 hours a day. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. With fast, easy, and discreet delivery, you can enjoy the same deals you enjoy in-store, but delivered to your home or office. Even same day. Restrictions may apply. Any questions? Let Besame's top-rated customer service team assist you. And this Chiefs season, don't miss a minute of the game with no delivery fees on game days. And when the home team wins, so do you. Use promo code 3PEAT and receive some extra free goodies with your next Besame order. Don't forget, you can still use promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order for online delivery or at any of their 5 area Besame locations.
The Pro Bowl voting came out. 5 Kansas City Chiefs. Jeff, did they get it right? No Patrick Mahomes, I will point out. If people aren't aware, Travis Kelce, Joe Tooney, Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Chris Jones, your 5 Pro Bowl representatives. Did the selection committee get it right? Which is I recognize it's not a committee. It's the fans. But just those that had, did they get it right on it?
Yeah, look, I think the guys who made it deserve to make it. You can quibble about Mahomes, but his numbers weren't as good as Lamar Jackson's or Joe Burrow's or Josh Allen's. If one of those guys, Josh Allen, I think, is the front runner for MVP. And so the other 2 guys have had historic seasons, not just good seasons, but they've done things that no other quarterback has ever done. It's hard to find a spot for Mahomes who's not going to throw for 4,000 yards, not going to throw for 30 touchdowns. Has been up there as far as interceptions goes. I mean, 15-1 is a pretty nice number to throw out there for his defense. But what this tells me is that, as I thought a few years ago, people catch up. Those other players have gotten better, and so I don't think. One, I think the Pro Bowl is not this huge. It's not what it used to be in terms of what it means. All Pro means a lot more. I don't think he'll be an All Pro either, but I do think they got it right at quarterback. And I don't think McDuffie had a great year. I think he was okay. He didn't do the things he did last year when he was an All-Pro player. And so I didn't have a problem with the guys who were on there ahead of him either.
Yeah, no Trent McDuffie, no Patrick Mahomes. I think those are the ones that people would talk about the most. Just overall, Sam, did they get it right on the 5 that they put in there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have major issues. I do think Trent McDuffie had a good enough year to be a Pro Bowl player. So I would have. I think there's a couple guys you could pick Trent McDuffie over. I know there's some griping over Patrick Mahomes. I don't know which quarterback you leave off that list if you're adding Patrick Mahomes to the list. And look, I mean, I am heading into these playoffs. I take Patrick Mahomes over any quarterback in the league. But I'm just saying you've got to judge it based on the body of work this year. And I think those other 3 guys had better years than Mahomes did.
Yeah, I get it. I think it is, it kind of speaks to, one, how many good quarterbacks there are right now and how much they're loaded on the AFC side.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's nothing wrong with the guys that were chosen to be in there. And throw in the fact that, there are guys like CJ Stroud and, other young players.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah. That look like that, they could be in this mix. So it just does speak to how competitive it is and probably where this, like other veteran guys, Ben Roethlisberger's, had this happen to him there. I'm sure everyone in Pittsburgh thought every year he's going to make it. At the end of the day, winning a championship, I think Patrick Mahomes, everyone say who's the best quarterback in football. They'd all still say Patrick Mahomes. He just doesn't get this award this year, right? This honor this year. And so I don't have a problem with it. In fact, I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you'll love it because I think you look at it and say, well, Petty Pat, have we found something to motivate him? Okay, I'm not the MVP and I'm not even a Pro Bowler. Okay, I'll show you. And do you get the best of him? We've seen him play very well at times when he's theoretically had something to prove. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think he's going to play worse because of it. I think that's for sure. I'm with you, Sam, on Trent McDuffie. I think he's worthy of being on this team. I think he had a very good year. And I'm curious as to why he just doesn't seem to get this nod. I mean, he was first team All-Pro last year and didn't get this nod last year. And so
that was a nickel though. He was as the nickel guy, right?
right.
Yeah.
Well, which is one of the spots.
Yeah.
And now he moved over to the other side. I thought still played well. I thought he played great early. I think he's given up some catches here lately. Yes, that's happened, but everyone gives up a few catches. Like nobody's got a 0 passer rating, on him out there. So I was a little surprised. I thought last year was he didn't make it. And now you read all the things about how Trent McDuffie should make it when he made first team All-Pro. All the people, whether it's fans or whoever, they become enlightened and educated to, I guess I kind of overlooked that guy. And then you get it the next year. Sometimes when you don't even deserve it, you get it because you should have been there the year before, and he didn't get that kiss this year. So I am surprised that McDuffie wasn't there. I think he's good enough to be there. Any other names, though? I mean, I think those are the obvious ones. Did Nick Bolton deserve some conversation for just the way he plays the run? I know most people are going to say no, but did he at least deserve a conversation for it?
Well, look, the Pro Bowl is all pro to a certain extent is this way too. It's about your reputation. It's about the narrative around you. And so for Nick Bolton, like just the fact that he's not a great pass defender, that's always going to be held against him. Like he's not Roquan Smith. I forget he's Zach Bond on the NFC side. These guys who are really more athletic and more versatile. That hurts you when it comes to this kind of, because people don't remember you. They have to see you. We sit here, we watch the Chiefs games. People on this show watch the Chiefs games relentlessly and in a very, very refined way. When you go watch other teams play, I watch like 10, 11 games a week, so I see a lot of people play. When I watch other teams play, it's with the same level of scrutiny. I think most people watch it without that. And so I think that's what hurts people like Nick Bolton. It hurts like Trent McDuffie because you don't see the big splash plays. Like I guarantee you the people who didn't vote for Trent McDuffie say, I saw this big play against the Broncos and the 22 was there. I saw the Raiders and Brock Bowers was catching a pass. So that's what they remember. And if you don't
I think
it's on tape, they don't see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting you there, Jeff. Yeah. I think that is a great point as to why they're not. Let me ask, should they be? Right, Sam? This is the number 2 scoring defense in the NFL right now. When we're going to at least call a halt to when they tried and when they played all their guys. So everybody take a snapshot of where we are right now. They stand. They have given up exactly 7 more points than the Chargers, who are the number 1 defense in football. And they have 1 defensive player, right? I think Jeff's 100% right on all the reasons why they don't have more. But is really this number 2 scoring defense and number 4 yardage defense in the NFL really only have 1 Pro Bowl player on it?
Yeah, I actually wonder that same thing as far as just the unit itself, because I mean, look, the reason the Ravens still have to win a game just to win the division in the last week of the season is their pass defense has been terrible this year, and they get a cornerback on the team. And I do think it's exactly for the reason Jeff said. I mean, Marlon Humphreys has been a good player for a longer time than Trent McDuffie's even been in the league. And so you get these sort of, I mean, this happens in every league's all-star game. Like you're rewarded for longevity as much as you are for the exact season itself. The flip side of that is that Patrick Mahomes doesn't make it for his longevity that these other 3 guys do, particularly for the specific seasons that they had this year. And so I could understand some frustration with Chiefs fans just because there's some hypocrisy with Mahomes not making it and McDuffie not making it. They seem to be not making it for the exact opposite reason.
Who are the reasons that this team has the number 2 defense in the NFL?
Steve
what players? Okay, Spagnuolo, great. That's a good one. And we would point to and say the defensive coordinator is maybe more important than any player you can put on the field. And I'm fine. That's a great discussion to have. And theoretically, I think that's a great point to say Steve Spagnuolo is number 1. Chris Jones obviously belongs there. Who else? Who else makes this defense her?
McDuffie. I mean, McDuffie and Jones are clearly separate from the rest of the group. I will say a guy that we haven't talked about much this year that I think's had a pretty good year has been Justin Reed.
I'm fine with that. He's had a pretty good year. I'm also fine with that. He's not on here. I think he's a good player.
He's not a Pro Bowl player, but my point is I think he's had a better year than he did his first 2 years in Kansas City.
I'm going to fight for Nick Bolton from this standpoint, and it's okay that he doesn't make it. I know we're looking for more of the all-around linebacker, the more coverage. He's not a great coverage linebacker, but I do believe that a part of the reason this defense is what it is what he does bring against the run. He's around the ball. He knocks the ball out. He gets on the football. He has a nose for big plays. Jeff, you did make the point about like, well, when we're talking about McDuffie, the big plays. I mean, he had a touchdown in the Super Bowl, had another one called back. He gets on the football all the time. Like he is kind of that guy that there are plenty of big plays that are made by Nick Bolton.
Here's the other part of this too. Tell me what he's making next year and who he's making it for. Because when you got the big contract, people tend to notice that. So Denzel Ward is on this team for the Cleveland Browns because he's one of the highest paid corners in the NFL. And people say, if you're paying that guy.
Yeah, he must be good.
He must be good. And so, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was just going to say with the linebacker point that Soren made, I think your point on Steve Spagnuolo, Jeff, is best exhibited with the linebackers and the way he's used those guys this year. I mean, like, Leo Chenal's been great this year because they play him in a very specific role, and he's great at that role. And Drew Tranquill, I think, is a more versatile guy that they can play in different sort of packages. And, like, we haven't been talking nearly as much about the way the linebackers have been in coverage this year as we did a year ago, even as I think their coverage overall has not been as good without having L'Jarius Sneed, without having McDuffie in the slot. Like, they've had more questions about coverage overall, but it's not specifically because of the linebackers the way it was a year ago. And I think that is where Steve Spagnuolo has done his best work, because those linebackers he has, I mean, Drew Tranquill was given up on by the Chargers. Nick Bolton, we know, has limitations. We know Leo Chenal was criticized for being a third round pick, and people criticize that. So I think they've gotten the most out of their talent there.
Yeah, they remind me a lot of, and I know this sounds comical right now, but the Bengals a couple of years ago when they beat the Chiefs and they had that unit. It was not a star-studded unit, but they had Trey Hendrickson, who's become a star. Jesse Bates was a guy they didn't value in the same way, and he was a star player. Logan Wilson was a linebacker. DJ Reader. They had these elements that people didn't know that much about, or maybe a couple stars, but they really played well as a unit. And you saw them play well against the Chiefs because the coordinator was really good at how he used them. That's how I see the Chiefs. Spagnuolo has some guys. A couple guys are top tier. Most of the guys, he gets to play above what they are because of how he schemes things up.
I think it would have been really interesting to see what Charles Omenihu would be for a whole season, right? Like, I think he's a name that we could mention as well, because I think it's all fit. I don't think it's just what he physically brings himself, which I think is a lot to this football team. And I think he's a very good defensive player, but he also makes it all fit. And I think that's an important part of the equation for them as well. Speaking of making it all fit when it comes to your insurance, that's David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Jeff, who do we need to tell the fans to root for? Right? Or what, because that's a lot of my get. Well, who should I be rooting for in these other games? Like, I'll get Jazzu J, a guy who calls into me, will often ask on a Friday, hey, this game, it's, both of them, one team winning is going to be, bad for the Chiefs. One team, either way, one of them is going to be, gaining ground on the Chiefs. So who should I be rooting against? Right? Like, basically we're saying, what's the best bracket that we can see for the Kansas City Chiefs here? So who would you recommend?
Well, any bracket that involves the Steelers or the Texans coming here in the first round, the divisional round, is what you want, right? And so I think ideally, I feel like the Chargers are going to end up being the 5 seed. I don't trust Pittsburgh. I think the Bengals are going to beat them. I think the Chargers are going to beat the Raiders. But if that were not to happen, or what you want is for Well, you don't want the Ravens to be the 6th seed. You want the Steelers to win the division, and you want the Texans to be the 4th seed. And I think that's probably your best case scenario. You're not avoiding either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. If you're asking me to pick between those two, you'd probably want to see Lamar than you probably would Josh Allen, because Josh Allen has played well in the playoffs and Lamar hasn't. But I think that when the Chiefs start playing football again in January, later in January, it's going to be the Chargers who are going to be here. And I think the Ravens are playing the Bills on the other side.
All right, that's interesting. So I want to go back. You said you want the Steelers to win the division, so you're rooting for the Browns.
I'm sorry. I think I got confused. You want the Steelers to be in position to come here,
right?
And
okay, so
they'll play the Texans. I think you want Steelers playing the Texans. So you want them to be the 5. The Texans.
So Ravens go ahead and win. So a 2-3 that has the Ravens and Bills playing each other. There's no real hope for setting up anyone that can knock them down, Sam, right? Like, are we all resigned to the fact that Buffalo and Baltimore will be playing in the divisional round, and so it's important to have them run into each other? Or do we see a scenario that somebody could get in there, that somehow it could affect, the Broncos are, because they reseed, so the lowest seed is going to come to Kansas City. Nobody's got Denver or Miami or Cincinnati, and for some people, I think it's just don't get the Bengals in. It's lose to the Broncos so that the Bengals are out, because I don't want to see Joe Burrow. I've heard that from some Chiefs fans, because if a 7 upsets a 2, they're coming here, right? So there is a little bit more to the equation than some people might realize.
Yeah, but can we address that specific point? Because that knocks the Bills out of the playoffs, and the Chiefs are 15-1, and we certainly don't have to remind people of who the 1 is. If that's the trade-off, that you have to play the Bengals, but the Bills are eliminated from the equation, you'll take that trade-off. And I'm not saying the Chiefs would automatically beat the Bengals. The Chiefs proved this year they could lose to anybody, including if the Broncos are the 7th seed. They almost lost to the Broncos earlier this year. So I don't understand as much about this fear of the Chiefs haven't lost to the Bengals in almost 800 days. They've won 2 Super Bowls since they last lost to the Bengals. This thought, because they beat them one time, that they're suddenly in their heads forever, it actually speaks to the difficulty of beating Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, that the team that last got him a few years ago is suddenly the giant killers still today. And the Bengals aren't the team that they were 2 years ago. Jeff mentioned all that stuff on the defense. He was exactly right about how good the Bengals defense was 2 years ago. They don't have that group this year. That's why they're fighting for the playoffs in week 18, is because their defense is 4th worst in the NFL in terms of points against, in terms of DVOA. So Jeff got the bracket exactly right. You want to get, I think that the Bills will win. I think that the Ravens will win in the first round. Although under Jeff's scenario, if the Steelers lose to the Bengals, I guarantee you that the first-round team the Ravens don't want to see is the Steelers, because they've got Lamar's number. And, I know they beat him in 1 game this year, but Lamar's got a terrible record against the Steelers in his career, and that could potentially be a 3-6 game. So, sure, that could be an upset. I wouldn't predict it, but that could happen. And so the scenario you want to root for as the Chiefs is to get to Jeff's bracket, which he's right about. You want the Steelers to beat the Bengals, so they get the 5 seed. You want the Ravens to still hold serve so that they get the 3 seed. And so if you're believing that the Ravens and Bills are going to hold serve in the first round and be the 2-3, the game you're getting is the Texans and Steelers, which in my mind would be the 2 worst playoff teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why you want the Ravens there is because you want the Ravens to beat the Browns. I think that's important, is because you avoid seeing the Ravens, because the Ravens would fall to they would fall to, would they be they
either 3 or 5.
Either 3 or 5. But which either way, once they fall out of the top 4, you could see them in the divisional round.
Yes.
So I think you want to avoid that. And so
absolutely
get the Ravens on through. And then if anybody at that point, you don't care. 4, 5, 6, 7, you bring them all on. I do think, though, from a Bengals perspective, Jeff, quarterbacks, do you really? The Bengals defense sucks. The Chiefs have already beat them. Yes, they've debunked the theory of Burrowhead. No, the Bengals, I don't think, have their number, but they are, along with Tom Brady, Joe Burrow's the other quarterback that's beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. That's not silliness. That's reality. and he is red hot. He is playing at a high level. And we talk a lot on the show that, like, if the idea is to come out and beat the Chiefs 13-10, if that's your game plan, you know, in years past, it's got a little more credence this year, and, you know, because of the way the offense is. But generally speaking, you need an offense that will outscore the Chiefs. You need a coach that will go for it on fourth down. Zach Taylor's proven to be that guy. Joe Burrow has proven to be that quarterback. I don't think it's foolish to want the Bengals out of the way.
It's not, but I also don't subscribe. It's like sometimes we talk out of both sides of our mouth. We want to talk about Chiefs are 15-1, who can beat them? And then we're talking about, well, who should they be afraid of? who do we not want to see come in here and play these guys? I think all these teams, all these coaches and quarterbacks specifically, because it's about beating Patrick Mahomes, have been through this enough times to where you have to assume that they know it's going to be hard. And so regardless of how you want to break it down, I'm not trying to minimize the exercise we're doing here, but I know that, yeah, the Chiefs know if they see the Bengals, it's going to be tough, but they know the Bills are going to be tough. They know the Ravens are going to be tough. Anybody they see beyond the divisional round is going to be hard. And so, and vice versa. You can't tell me that Josh Allen, when he saw the Chiefs got home field advantage, was like, oh my God, we got to go there again. How can we win? He's probably like, you know what? It's our time. I'm sure Lamar Jackson's thinking it's our time. If it's Joe Burrow, he's probably thinking the same thing. And really, that also comes down to coaching. It's I've never understood, if you think you can win a championship, you're not scared of anybody. And I think that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I don't think the Chiefs are scared of the Bengals. I think the fans are scared.
I don't think they are. Yeah.
But I think you should have a healthy respect.
Yeah,
Joe Burrow. Right?
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson too. I don't think you can.
But I think that's there. Right. And I think everybody's, especially this year, because their team is playing better. I do think that Bengals are a dangerous team. I think if you can score, you get a couple of funny bounces of the football, and all of a sudden you're up 10-0, right? Like, because you got point blank range, and now you're chasing Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It's not a good spot to be in. Right.
Yeah, you're right. And look, I mean, I'd feel differently about this whole Bengals equation if they could get the 6th seed. And therefore, you could potentially have to worry about them upsetting, the Ravens. Then you have to play the Bengals and the Bills. I feel differently about it. It's just the fact that playing the Bengals means that the Bills are out. And so, I would take that trade-off. I'd rather play the Bengals than the Bills, even if I think the Bengals are a dangerous team.
The Bills are the toughest team. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a number of folks have said that in the comment section. All right, what do we think is going to happen? What's your prediction for the game with the Broncos, Jeff?
Oh, I think the Broncos blow them out. I think it's like 27-10. I don't see where – we've talked a lot this year, not as much recently, about the depth issues on defense. If they're not playing Trent McDuffie, I don't see how Bo Nix is going to have a huge day against this team. And if you're not playing some key offensive linemen, and you're going with a backup quarterback and Carson Wentz, and receivers are going to be different, I just don't see how that their offense really matches up with this defense. So I think it's 27-10.
Okay, Sam.
Yeah, just Tommy Moe there. I know they can't get the 6th seed. I was saying I'd feel differently if they could. For the Broncos,
listen, you got to listen.
Yeah. I was just addressing a comment there.
This is Tommy.
Just for clarification. I know they can't get the 6th seed.
And by the way, can I also point out you made it clear?
Yeah.
You made it quite clear that they couldn't.
Yeah.
So you would feel differently they could get the 6th seed. So
I just wanted to make
sure. Playoff scenarios typing away.
Well, I didn't know. Maybe I'd accidentally said something wrong or something. So okay.
No, you didn't. Yeah.
I actually could see a scenario in which it is a game, which is just that this is all the pressure in the world's on one team. And I don't think that there's no pressure on the Chiefs because of what you said earlier, Soren, about Carson Wentz is playing for a job. And so I think he's got some pressure on him. But I do think that's going to make him a more aggressive player on Sunday. And so, look, when you're more aggressive, some funny things can happen. Like, a jump ball goes your way, that sort of thing, to where I could see a scenario where this is a more competitive game than the odds makers think, and then what a lot of predictors think. I do think the Broncos will win the game anyway, but I think it's more like a 23-13 game.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs to cover the number. I like them to hang in there and make it a fight because, one, I think the Broncos come into this game feeling like they've got it as a win. So I think you're going to see a conservative approach by the Denver Broncos. I think they come in knowing they're supposed to win. The Chiefs are going to play backups. And so I think they feel like it's just going to happen. And so you're going to see a game that ends up grinding it out, being a little more rock fightish. Plus, a lot of the defensive guys have played, right? So I think the Chiefs defense is going to be maybe better than some people think. Plus, I think we saw Steve Spagnuolo without Chris Jones last week. He's pretty good. He'll dial some things up and hang around and take some things away from the Denver Broncos. I think the question is how well are they going to protect Carson Wentz? I think if Wentz gets protection, Andy Reid will scheme some guys open. They'll have some success. The Broncos defense is very good. It hasn't been as good of late as it was early on. So I think the Chiefs offense can have a day, and I think the Broncos will naturally try not to lose this game more than they will come out trying to win it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll see Sean Payton, a guy who did onside kick it to start a second half of a Super Bowl, come out and recognize I can't play that way and go balls to the wall. I'll take it.
The people are hold up. Before you say the number, the people are calling for the Fury here, Soren.
I know.
What do you got?
Matt is calling for the Fury. I don't know that anybody else is. Unleash the Fury. Give us the Fury. He wants the Fury. I'm not going to give you Fury. The Broncos win this one on a field goal late. I'll take it 20-17.
Cutting it that close. Wow, that's a heck of a strategy for Sean Payton there.
Yeah. Well, I
don't think the line.
I think that I just explained. I think he'll expect the Chiefs to come out and just lay down and lose, and I don't think
they blocked the field goal last time they played. You think he's going to put that with a chance again?
Yeah. Listen, we'll break it all down. We'll have the playoff bracket the next time we talk here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. We're always brought to you by our friends at David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Serving Kansas City for 30 years. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Our friends at Besame Wellness. Use promo code podcast25 to save on your entire order at Besame. Whataburger, they're open 24 hours a day, people. Get a kick this football season with great favorites. You can check out their new, perfectly spicy bacon blaze jalapeno double, a great new burger. And, of course, their Whata Wings are absolutely fantastic. You can get them in the box for a party as well. That's always a great option. I know I've done it for a couple of parties at my house. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. Text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222. And our friends at Key Cannabis. Key Cannabis open 7 days a week, or shop online at KeyCannabis.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.